I think there's something in the wood, or when they put the chopstick in their mouth, okay, the nutrients from the wood, there's some kind of, something gets absorbed. Hey guys, you got the sarcastic health nerd here, and today I want to review blocks of wood. I want to review pieces of wood. Today I'm going to review chopsticks. Chopsticks. Okay, so what's the deal with chopsticks? I'm an American. I have a very hard time eating with these. I think a lot of Americans do. That's nothing against the chopsticks. That's against us. They're two pieces of wood. They're two sticks. It's so hard to eat with two sticks. What's wrong with a fork? Okay, forks are fine. Okay, now I want to have a serious discussion on Asian food, specifically Japanese food. This is a health channel after all. I love Japanese food. I think the world in general can learn a lot about health by looking at Japanese food and what the Japanese consume. Japan has one of the best life expectancies in the entire world, especially of all the developed countries. Okay? Actually, I believe they have the longest life expectancy of any country, flat out. And so, why? Why do they live so much longer? Do they have less smoking, less drinking? Is it a cultural thing? Do they have less stress? Well, I think a lot of it's related to the food. A lot of it's related to these chopsticks. Okay, I think there's something in the wood, or when they put the chopstick in their mouth, okay, the nutrients from the wood, there's some kind of, something gets absorbed. No. Okay, if anything, the wood's probably coated with some kind of preservative. I don't know. That could be bad. I don't know. But, okay, so what happens when you eat with chopsticks? Especially if you're bad at eating with chopsticks. Probably isn't an issue at all, or maybe it is if you become good at eating with chopsticks. Okay, you're going to eat a lot slower. There's something about eating with chopsticks, and it's only a little bit better than eating with your hands, in my opinion. It's not like a fork. You got your fork, you got your spoon. I mean, of course I have utensils here. But look at your spoon. This one has to be washed. Okay. But it's basically a mini shovel. So what happens if you're using a mini shovel to eat? You're going to eat really, really fast. You want to dig into your food. Alright, you have, soup, which this soup takes forever to eat with a small spoon, so we got to give you an even bigger mini shovel. Okay, a big mini shovel, so you can eat that as quickly as you possibly can. Now, what I recommend to really, really, really enjoy and savor your soup, you want to eat that with chopsticks. Okay, you dip the chopsticks in the soup, and then you sip it off of the... That's what I do. I eat my soup in 3 hours. So, what else about Japanese food, Japanese culture? Well, sushi is interesting in that it's served as the main dish. Okay, sushi is the meal. You have an American dinner, you got like piece of meat. I think the generic American plate is piece of meat, some kind of starch, potato, rice, pasta, and then maybe a small serving of vegetables or something else. And so it's a big plate. And the Japanese just have sushi, maybe something on the side, maybe some soup. And you go to a Japanese restaurant and it's just one roll of sushi, 2 rolls of sushi served on a plate. It doesn't look like much. But that says something. And it's not much. It's not as big or as dense as our plates, but the flavor is a lot more complex. It's a lot more, the flavor's more dense. There's a lot more to get out of the meal. There's a lot more variety within that one roll of sushi than there is in an American plate, which might be 3 different things. And you enjoy it. You eat it very, very, very slow. And I generally try consciously to control how fast I eat, but it's actually very hard. If you're eating a food, especially a food that you eat all the time, and you're talking or you're watching TV or a movie, or heck, even trying to read something while you eat, generally the eating goes on autopilot, and you're focusing on all the other things. It's only if you're eating and not doing anything else, and not even like looking at anything, focusing on anything, that you really become conscious of the eating. But if you're doing anything else, the eating very easily goes on autopilot, because it's such a repetitive motion. And so I've taken note when I've eaten on autopilot how fast I eat certain foods. And so like, the more complex the flavor, the longer it takes me to eat the food. And if I actually consciously become aware of my eating, I'll find that as I'm chewing, I'm looking for all the different flavors, all the different tastes on my taste buds, and examining every little thing, perhaps subconsciously, before I actually swallow the food. So if I'm eating something very bland, like maybe just some potatoes with some butter on it, or a piece of meat like steak that I eat all the time, then yeah, steak is chewy, but you're not really worried about the flavor. You just want to chew it up. And it's like, yeah, I've eaten this a million times. It's nothing new. It's steak. Come on, just chew it, swallow it, and I'll eat familiar meals very, very, very quickly. But when I have sushi, and usually it's at a restaurant and I'm with people, and I've gotten typical meals, American meals at a restaurant with people, and I eat them fairly quickly. Well, I try not to, but if I'm not paying attention, I do. But the sushi, if I'm not paying attention, it still takes me, for something that's, for one roll, between 200 and 300 calories, it might take me like half an hour, because I chew it so much. I focus on the flavor without even thinking about it so much. It's like there's a part of my brain that's dissecting every little piece of flavor. And so once it recognizes everything, once it chews it up thoroughly, then I can actually ingest it. So the Japanese have a lot to teach us. And so, in taking forever to eat the food, which you just can't help but do because of the flavor complexity, after like half an hour, you might just have had one roll of sushi, and you feel like a badass. You're like, I've been eating like half an hour, and because you take so long to eat, you register the food. Your body recognizes it, and then it's able to give you those signals that tell you that you're actually full, that you're done. Whereas if you're wolfing down the food, it takes a little while. So, even though you're eating very little, you feel like a badass after half an hour. Because you're like, I've been eating for half an hour. I gotta stop. What am I doing here? I can't just eat all day. When in actuality, you've eaten very little. So, what does the chopsticks have to do with this whole thing? Well, when you eat with the chopsticks, I feel like you're more connected with the food. And I feel like when you're eating with, a fork and a spoon, it's for efficiency. It's not for enjoyment or experience. It's for getting the food in you as fast as possible. But my favorite way to eat, I don't use these. I went to a Chinese restaurant yesterday and somehow walked out with these in my pocket. I don't know how it ended up there. But a great topic for a video. My favorite way to eat is with my hands. I wash my hands. If I've been playing in the mud, then I'll wash them twice. Or if I'm really dirty, I'll take a shower after, I'm done with whatever I was doing. And then, yes, I'll eat with my hands. I eat salad with my hands. The only things I don't eat with my hands are like mashed potatoes, which I rarely eat anyway, or like pudding, which I rarely eat too. I wouldn't eat that with my hands. But like vegetables, you can eat a salad with your hands, and what ends up happening, you know, you get a lot of stuff. Yes, your hands get dirty, but as long as they're clean, you'll find yourself licking your fingers a lot. And, you know, just wash your hands off after you're done eating, that's all. But it takes longer to eat that way when you do it that way. You feel, I don't know, more connected with the food. Like, you get more out of it. It creates more of an experience. And it, dare I say, feels more natural? Why is that? Maybe because, you know, knives and forks haven't been around that long. I think, as a species, we're more used to eating with our hands. Remember, my number one tip, if you don't get anything out of this video except for one thing, if you only get one thing, it's this. And don't forget it. Eat soup with chopsticks.